Okay, so we already went over the mics I use on the drums for Watermelon Sugar. So let's go over the treatment of those mics to Luna. So starting with our kick drum, which was our D6, I've got the SSL channel strip in the unison slot here. I'm using this as the preamp, and I'm adding a little bit of EQ on the way in, just a little bit of beef and some beater. I've got the Cambridge EQ, which I love to use for surgical moves that's not going to be too colored. So I'm using this to pull out a little bit of 230, which is just kind of a strange resonant frequency that was kind of bumming me out. I've got the distressor here, but I'm only mixing in just a little touch of the compressed signal, just so I can get a little bit of parallel compression to tape. So let's check out what that sounds like. So on the snare drum, I've got the Neve 1084, which is one of my favorite emulations that UA makes, and it's especially good on snare drum. I've got it pretty hot, but I'm pulling the output down a little bit because I want a little bit of that clipping. Uh, Other than that, I've got a little bit of 10K going, some 3, and a little bit of 110 being added in, and then I'm rolling off everything below 70 just because I don't need that shit in my snare drum. A little bit of the same action I had going on the kick. I've got a distressor that I'm blending in just a touch of wet signal in. And I've got the high pass detector on the circuit just because I thought it sounded better. This is helping add to some of the attack and the immediacy of the snare drum. So let's see what that sounds like. I know I talked shit on Tom's last time, and I haven't really changed my stance. I mean, they're Toms. I'm gonna skip them because they're boring. Moving to our overheads, which were the Mojave MA100s, I've got the API Vision Strip as my preamp and EQ. Now, in this instance, I'm rolling off a little 12.5 just because it's kind of a small room and it's pretty bright. And that particular frequency felt like it was really poking out and harshing my vibe. So I just pulled about 2 dB of that out. I am adding some 8K back in just to brighten it up a little bit. And then a little bit of 300 just because it felt good. I'm also rolling off some of the low end just to keep the kick and some of the other stuff out of the way of the cymbals. So after that, I've got the Fatso going, which I love using on overheads here because it is a small room, like I said, and it helps round off some of the edges. And it just adds a nice glue to the kit. So let's listen to both overheads together because they're both being treated the same. We are to our fun little crush mic, the Electro Voice Raven that's under the tom. On this one, it's kind of a similar treatment to last time. If you watched our last video, you'll know what I'm talking about here. But I'm pretty heavily gating and compressing this on the way in with the 4K channel strip here. EQing it fairly aggressively. I mean, nothing too drastic, but I am filtering quite a bit of stuff off. I've got the Culture Vulture, which is adding some crazy cool distortion to the mic. So let's check out what that sounds like. So you can see it's kind of a fun alternative to like a snare bottom, which I'm not really a big fan of. I find that generally if I get a snare bottom mic in a mix, I immediately throw it out because they usually sound like and they're not very helpful. But in this case, you can kind of create another fun element to the kit that helps round it out in a cool way that also adds some of that stuff that you're missing from not having a snare bottom. So moving on to the room mic, which is our MA200 in the kitchen, down low, sort of pointed at the cabinets to pick up some of the resonant frequencies from the kick drum and try to hide some of the cymbal bleed and craziness that's going to really mess up a, bright room mic. So on that, I've got the V76 preamp, which is just a great old school sounding preamp. And then after that, I'm EQing the out of it with the Cambridge, taking out some of these weird resonant frequencies, rolling off quite a bit of top end, just again to help keep cymbals out of the way because I am going to hit it really hard. I'm using the Valley People Dynamite compressor, which is pretty crazy and out of control, and I love it because of that. You can kind of paint yourself into a corner if you're not careful, but that's kind of the fun of it. So after that, I've got even more chaos with some tape echo, which I was trying to just get a little bit more movement and like funk out of the room mic, which you'll hear it's kind of chaotic, but it really adds something nice to the kit and makes it feel a little less sterile. So let's check out the room mic. So it's pretty fucking extreme, which I like. I like blowing stuff up and fitting it into the kit in a fun way. And I think in this instance it works. So let's listen to the whole kit, see what it's like. So that's how I treated the mics on the way in. There's no secrets. It's all basic recording, but just taking the time to be intentional and really crafting the sounds on the way in so you're not having to do a bunch of heavy lifting later. That's it. I'll get into mixing later. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the video, or if you haven't watched it yet, I encourage you to go watch it. Any questions, comments, feel free to reach out.